She was 17, walking home on the same street she'd walked 100 times before. Familiar houses, familiar faces, safety, or so she thought. In the span of 30 seconds, Emily Carter's life changed forever. Snatched off the sidewalk in broad daylight. No witnesses, no clues, just a backpack left behind, and silence. But what her abductor didn't know was that Emily wasn't just another statistic. While the world searched for her in vain, she wasn't praying for rescue, she was planning one. In the darkest hours of her captivity, Emily fought a battle most would never survive. A battle not of strength, but of wit, patience, and sheer will to live. This is not just a story about a kidnapping. It's a story about survival, about outsmarting evil, and proving that even in the deepest darkness, hope can be a weapon. This is the true story of how Emily Carter outwitted her captor and won her freedom. Before we dive deeper into this gripping story, if you believe in survival, justice, and true crime stories that inspire, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notification. Here at Crime Files AI, we don't just tell stories, we uncover battles fought and won. Let's get into it. The morning light filtered softly through the gauzy curtains of Emily Carter's bedroom, casting a warm, golden hue across the posters on her wall and the pile of books stacked by her bedside. Emily, groggy but determined, swung her legs over the side of the bed and padded across the floor to begin another day. It was a Thursday, unremarkable in every way. Yet, beneath the routine buzz of her household, the clinking of coffee cups, the low murmur of the morning news, something felt slightly off. Emily couldn't name it, but she shrugged it off, blaming pre-exam stress. Breakfast was rushed, as usual. Her mother's peck on the cheek, her father's distracted wave as he scrolled through emails. Emily pulled on her jacket, slung her bag over her shoulder, and stepped out into the crisp spring air. The walk to school was a route she could navigate blindfolded. It wound through tree-lined streets dotted with neat houses and manicured lawns. She passed familiar faces. The woman who jogged every morning at exactly 7:45, the elderly man tending to his garden with military precision, kids dashing to catch the bus. Routine. Safe. By noon, classes blurred into a haze of lectures and hurried note-taking. Emily's mind was already half on the weekend. She and her best friend, Sarah, had plans: movies, shopping, ice cream at the little place downtown. As the final bell rang, Emily stepped into the sunlight, breathing in freedom. She exchanged a quick goodbye with Sarah, who waved as she hurried toward the parking lot. Emily adjusted the strap of her backpack and set off for home. It was the same path she always took, past the rows of mailboxes, the cracked sidewalk near the corner, the park with its creaking swings swaying in the breeze. The dark sedan was the only new detail. She noticed it a block away, idling by the curb, engine running but windows up. A flicker of unease prickled at her, but she kept walking. Cars parked on the street weren't unusual. Still, she glanced at it again as she approached. Tinted windows. No visible driver. Her pulse quickened. At the last second, as she passed the car, the door swung open. Hands grabbed her. Firm. Relentless. Emily's world tilted. She dropped her backpack, kicking and thrashing, but the cloth pressed over her mouth cut off her scream. The smell hit her instantly, sweet, chemical, overpowering. She fought, but the world blurred at the edges, and then nothing. When she woke, the life she had known was gone. The first full day in the basement was the longest day of Emily's life. She sat curled on the thin mattress, staring at the floor, the door, the chain. Anything but the tray of food left untouched beside her. She wasn't hungry. Hunger was a dull ache in her stomach compared to the razor-edged fear slicing through her every time she thought about what was happening. Every sound made her flinch. Every creak of the old house settling, every gust of wind rattling the unseen windows above, set her heart racing. But time, she realized, could be a weapon. The longer she was left alone, the more she could observe, think, plan. She didn't have a watch, but she started counting seconds, counting the minutes between meals, counting the footsteps when he approached. Her captor. She hadn't seen his face yet. She had seen only the broad outline of him. He was tall, with heavy boots that clunked against the concrete floor when he walked. He moved with purpose, but not with haste. He wasn't afraid of her. Good. He should be. The second time he came into the room, he said nothing. He opened the door, slid in a tray, and left. No threats. No words. Just the sound of the bolt sliding home. Emily stared at the door long after he was gone. She began to catalog everything. There were 4 bolts on the door, 2 high, 2 low. They slid smoothly, quietly, when locked or unlocked. The chain around her ankle was heavy, but not invincible. She ran her fingers along it carefully, noting the weak links where rust had thinned the metal. The concrete floor was cracked in places. Hairline fractures that might be useful. The mattress was old, the fabric torn in places. She could use that. Somehow, there were no windows, no visible vents. But the air wasn't completely stale. There had to be ventilation somewhere. A crawl space, a duct, something. She would find it. By the 3rd day, Emily had a routine. Count breaths, count footsteps, catalog every detail. She ate sparingly. Enough to keep her strength up, but not enough to dull her senses. She slept in short bursts, always half alert. And she observed. She learned that he visited twice a day, once to bring food, once to check on her. She learned that he kept his keys on a hook at his belt, jangling slightly with every movement. She learned that he left the door unlocked while he was inside. And she learned that he underestimated her. He thought she was broken. Good. On the 4th day, Emily made her first move. She waited until he brought in the food. Then, as he bent to set the tray down, she shifted, ever so slightly, making the chain clink against the floor. He glanced at her, annoyed. She shrank back, made herself look small, afraid. He smirked. And in that smirk, she saw it, arrogance. Overconfidence. He thought he had already won. Let him think that. She would let him make more mistakes. Days blurred together. Emily marked them by the meals, by the moments of light when the bulb flickered on, by the soft clink of the chain as she shifted on the mattress. She began to test the chain, gently, subtly, twisting it back and forth, feeling forgive. At night, she whispered to herself, running over every memory she had of survival stories, of news reports, of things she had read about escape. She didn't have strength on her side, but she had patience, and she had her mind. On the 7th day, he made his first real mistake. He stayed longer. He sat in a chair just inside the doorway, watching her. Emily sat perfectly still, pretending to be lost in despair. He spoke casually, as if they were old acquaintances. "You'll get used to it," he said. She didn't respond. "It's better if you don't fight it." Still, she said nothing. He sighed, standing. "Suit yourself." But as he turned, the keys swung wide. And she saw it, a small tear in the pocket where the hook was attached. Weak fabric. A target. She tucked the knowledge away. That night, she didn't sleep. She plotted. If she could get close enough, if she could jostle him, bump him, even just once, the key could fall. It was a long shot, but it was a shot. And Emily Carter had decided one thing very clearly. She would not die here. The next morning, Emily woke with a new sense of clarity. She had a goal. It would take time. It would take precision. But she could do it. She had to. First, she needed proximity. She had to get close enough to her captor to make the plan work. Over the next few days, she started subtly shifting her behavior. Less resistance, more compliance. When he came in with food, she made herself look weaker. She sat closer to the mattress edge, within reach. She lowered her gaze, kept her posture small. Submissive. He began to relax. Emily noted the signs. The way he lingered longer. The way he turned his back sometimes. The way he'd gotten sloppy with the door, leaving it ajar for seconds longer. He was getting comfortable. He thought he had broken her. Good. On the 11th day, she got her first real opportunity. He brought in the food tray, setting it on the floor near her. As he turned to leave, Emily shifted, quickly but deliberately, letting the chain clink loudly. Startled, he glanced back, annoyed. She winced, pretending to cower, and leaned slightly toward him. The motion was enough. The keys, already swinging loosely from his torn pocket, snagged on the edge of the tray. As he turned back to the door, they slipped free. They hit the floor with a tiny clatter. He didn't notice. He stepped out, slammed the door, and bolted it. Emily froze, listening. Footsteps receding. Silence. She crawled forward, careful not to rattle the chain more than necessary. Her fingers closed around the keys. Cold metal. Heavy. Real. She tucked them under the mattress. Not yet. She couldn't rush this. She waited. 2 more days passed. She kept the routine. Docile. Quiet. Subdued. She needed to be sure. She needed the right moment. On the 3rd night, she heard the storm. Rain battered the roof. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Noise. Cover. Perfect. She waited until the house was silent except for the storm. Then she moved. Keys in hand, she worked quickly, heart hammering in her chest. She tried the first key. No luck. 2nd. 3rd. The 4th key clicked. The shackle fell away. Emily wasted no time. She padded silently to the door, testing the keys one by one. 3rd try. Success. The bolt slid back with a soft click. She eased the door open. Dark hallway. She moved like a shadow, barefoot, silent, every nerve on edge. Stairs. She crept upward. At the top, another door. Unlocked. She slipped through into what looked like a kitchen. Dim moonlight filtered through the windows. She scanned for anything, phone, weapon, anything. Nothing. She didn't waste time searching. She headed for the back door. Locked. She fumbled with the keys. Found the right one. Unlocked it. She slipped out into the storm. Rain lashed her face. Mud squelched between her toes. She ran. No plan. No direction. Just away. Behind her, a shout. She didn't look back. Branches tore at her skin. Rocks cut her feet. She ran. Lights. A road. A truck. She stumbled onto the pavement, waving frantically. The truck screeched to a halt. A man jumped out, shouting. Emily collapsed into his arms. Help, she gasped. Call 911. Sirens. Blue and red lights flashing through the rain. Safe. She was safe. Hospital lights blurred overhead as Emily was wheeled into the emergency room. Warm hands, gentle voices. Safety. She drifted in and out of consciousness, exhaustion overwhelming her. When she woke fully, her parents were there. Tears. Hugs. Relief. Detectives came next. Questions. So many questions. Emily answered as best she could. Descriptions. The house. The chain. The man. She remembered everything. The police moved quickly. They raided the house within hours. He was there. Calm. Silent. They found the room. The chain. Her blood on the floor. Evidence. He was arrested on the spot. Charged with kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, assault. No bail. Emily would never have to see him again. The media frenzy was immediate. Miracle escape, the headlines read. Emily Carter, survivor. She gave one interview, carefully scripted, thanking the police, the truck driver, the doctors. After that, she retreated from the spotlight. Healing would take time. But she had time now. She had won it. The trial began 6 months later. Emily sat in the courtroom, hands clasped tightly in her lap. She testified. Her voice shook at first, but she steadied it. She told her story. The jury listened, rapt. The evidence was overwhelming. The verdict, guilty on all counts. Sentenced to life without parole. Justice. But Emily's story didn't end there. She went back to school, finished her classes, graduated with honors. She volunteered with organizations for missing persons, speaking at events, sharing her story. Not to relive the trauma, but to show others it was possible to survive, to fight back, to win. She refused to be defined by what had been done to her. She defined herself: survivor, advocate, warrior. In interviews, when asked how she survived, she always said the same thing. You don't have to be the strongest. You just have to refuse to give up. Emily Carter never gave up. And because of that, she's here to tell her story. Believe in survival. Believe in justice. Subscribe to Crime Files AI and never miss a story where courage wins.